It's time for Lindsay's essay of the day. Yay!
Brought to you by We Should Write, right? I've been thinking a lot about roller coasters lately. They keep showing up in different ways in my life, both literally and figuratively. I've also been thinking a lot about the power of my actual words and intentions lately. Stick with me, these two things go together. So, as a person who makes their living creatively and artistically, every day is different, and abundance shows up in all different forms. And for a long time, I'd talk about the highs and lows of artistic life and how much I loved that. I literally say that I was so glad I got to ride high on those highs and sit low in those lows. And that I would hate it if I was a person who coasted along in the middle with nothing ever really peaking or valleying, so to speak, in my life. It was strange that I would cling so tightly to this being the only way of living that would work for me, and that I found it so thrilling. Because with those words, basically I was telling the universe I only wanted to be euphorically happy, or painstakingly sad, looking to be numbed. For example, I'll never forget when I sang for the first time at the Capitol in DC for the lighting of the Christmas tree. I found myself in a $5,000 gown loaned to me from a designer, being escorted by Secret Service to the Capitol lawn, performing for a live audience, televised performance, then whisked away in a limo to a dinner with some very important people. And then, later that night, I was alone in my hotel room thinking, now what? What do I do to top that? And feeling so alone and, yes, depressed. I couldn't shake that feeling. It truly was an emotional roller coaster. And by definition, roller coasters are characterized by sudden and extreme changes. Nailed it. I called my friend Tiffany, who's been performing all over the world since she was a teenager, and I asked her how she dealt with the highs of amazing performances and then the quiet lows of being alone and wondering how to stay relevant in the next moment. She didn't quite have an answer outside of sharing her own experiences and guaranteeing me I wasn't alone, which in the moment at least got me off the hotel room floor and into bed to sleep, and I lived to tell another day. But in that moment, I was wildly aware of the fact that I, in fact, did not like the highs and lows and should no longer wear it as a badge of honor. Rather, look for the smooth sailing places in life and try to live a little bit longer there. These days, I call it my metaphorical hammock. And by the way, these days, the healthy me lives for time alone in a hotel room. It's such a different lens that's quite shocking, actually. I just couldn't see it at that point. So, what was I talking about? Roller coasters, right. Last night, I had a dream that I got on a roller coaster, and as we were pulling out of the terminal, my lap bar was loose and flew up. I looked to the operator, who was, of course, probably 17 years old, and she shrugged her shoulders to say, "Not sure what we can do about it now. Good luck." We took off, and immediately there was an upside-down loop we were about to hit. I pushed my lap bar down as tight as I could and held on for dear life. But quickly, I felt the inertia keeping me in place, and I knew I was going to be safe if I would just release and relax. I do want to note that in my dream, everybody else's safety precautions were just fine, and it was only mine that was faulty. And yet, I was still fine. Read into that dream as much as you would like. It's all I've been doing all morning. But that got me thinking this morning about my 7-year-old daughter's slight obsession with roller coasters. About 2 years ago, we took her on her first roller coaster, and she had zero fear around the tallest ones. In fact, she was mad she was too short to go on some of the seemingly scariest ones. But we were able to take her on a very tall roller coaster that went upside down. She sat next to my husband, and I was behind them, and I remember worrying what happens if she freaks out during the ride. The first time experiencing something like that is actually pretty life-changing, one way or another. I just had to close my eyes and trust, and when we got to the end, she was all smiles, begging to go again, again, again. It was actually pretty amazing, and I realize now what an act of trust that was on so many levels. And to this day, not only does she want to ride roller coasters any chance she gets, she wants to watch videos about them and see how they work and watch people's reactions to them. She would literally watch roller coaster videos for hours upon hours if we let her. Don't worry, we don't let her do that, but I do find her fascination quite fascinating. The idea that something she loves so much makes her want to know and feel everything about it and experience it in its totality, that's just awesome. And most importantly, that she doesn't have to physically be on the ride to feel what it's like. This is reiterated something that I've come to learn about life. Life is about a feeling. I think Walt Disney's quote, "If you can dream it, you can do it," applies here in a sense of holding a vision and then feeling something and knowing it's already yours. I think roller coasters hold so many life metaphors in them if you stop and think about it. Now, the first signs of roller coasters date back to the 17th century in Russia, and their popularity rose across America in the late 19th century. But even before they existed, someone felt the intensity of what those rises and falls would feel like. The elation, the drop, the letdown when it was over, the excitement when you realized you could go again, and so on and so on. The movie Parenthood came out when I was 11. I watched it over and over, and even though I didn't fully understand at the time the life lessons they were alluding to, I knew it was deep and connected us all. And even at 11 years old, I knew that while Steve Martin's character rolled his eyes at the grandmother's speech about roller coasters, that scene would stick with me for life. And it has. And I quote, "I always wanted to go again. You know, it was just so interesting to me that a ride could make me so frightened, so scared, so sick, so excited, and so thrilled all together. Some didn't like it. They went on the merry-go-round. That just goes around. Nothing. I like the roller coaster. You get more out of it." Crazy Granny knew what she was talking about. And so, maybe it is the highs and the lows of life that I like, but also the merry-go-rounds and the games and even the "I'll sit this round out" that lights me up. Perhaps especially that one, actually, in my hammock, watching my daughter on her own roller coaster. I believe I've earned that.